If I have said it once, I've said it 1,000 times on this channel. Shinji Mikami is my favorite director in gaming. Suck it, Hideo Kojima. But did you know he was also based AF? Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and yes, shoutouts to the damned creators, Suda51 and Shinji Mikami slam video game censorship. Those who do not play games try to prevent people from enjoying the game. I love it because here I've made plenty of videos about how Japan is no longer the bastion of free speech, freedom of expression that we have come to know them as we live under the boot of censorious American and Western ideologies. But it seems like they actually feel the very same way about their own motherland and actually think that things are freer in the West. It's a very interesting dichotomy. So we're going to go through this article, we're going to break it down. But before we do, hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. And yeah, this is one of those articles that came out a few days ago I didn't cover, but I couldn't resist it. I know we're a few days late on it, but if you hadn't heard, this is a trip and it's a potential beautiful sign of things to come. Like most players who actually care about video games and not just how they can use it as a platform to signal how good of a person they supposedly are, storied shoutouts to the damn creators, Goichi Suda51 Suda and Shinji Mikami are not fans of the ongoing attempts, particularly those made by the Japanese government, to censor the medium. Now I got news for you. It's not just the Japanese government. I know that the grass seems greener on the other side, you two. It is unfortunately not the case. Just go look at all the things that have been censored in the West lately and realize that, oh, no, this is a global problem. This is a worldwide problem. So maybe we should get our Eastern and Western brethren who all hate this shit together and we attack this. We go straight up World War II style, war on two fronts, but this time Japan and America teaming up, baby. It's the dream team. Let's continue. Suda51, perhaps best known as the director of such titles as Killer 7, great. Lollipop Chainsaw, fucking awesome. No More Heroes, possibly his best game. I mean, yes, Lollipop Chainsaw is pretty banging for some very obvious visual reasons, but No More Heroes is a just absolute killer game. And Mikami, who players may recognize as the director of Resident Evil 4. Bounding, I love you guys. I speak your praise all the time. But put some goddamn respect on Shinji Mikami's name, not only Resident Evil 4, but he had a massive hand in literally every single Resident Evil leading up to 4. God Hand and Vanquish. Guys, come on now. You're not even going to mention the Evil Within as well? Oh, you cut me deep, Bounding into Comics. Offered their thoughts on that topic during a recent interview given to Japanese video game news outlet GameSpark in a reflection of the upcoming hella remastered release of their aforementioned action-adventure collaboration, Shadows of the Damned. Now, I'll be real. I actually remember not caring for Shadows of the Damned when it came out in 2011. I was really disappointed that this was where but it was where Shinji Mikami went after Capcom. And, yeah, maybe I need to go back and play it again, or maybe I need to check out this new, updated, remastered version and wonder if it was just my young, salty youth and, infiltrating my mentality because I had to accept. This game was just proof that I had to accept that Mikami would no longer be working on Resident Evil, my personal favorite game series of all time. So just so you know, you got yourself a customer out of me for this game. Following a brief discussion on the improvements made to the hella remastered compared to the original 2011 version of the game, namely improved textures and a keyboard and mouse support, as a machine translated by DeepL, hell yeah, more machine translation. You'll love to see it. AI translation, FT dubs. We need more of this. We don't need localizers and translators bastardizing messages, especially messages as important as this. The two creators were met by their previous admonishment of content regulations, speaking to the Japanese game outlet Game Watch at the time of the original Shadows of the Damned release. Mikami specifically opined, I feel that the scope of what is allowed in Japan is narrower than what is allowed overseas. That's a really interesting statement for him to make because, again, as I mentioned earlier, we here in the West, we look at Japan, we look at Japanese games, we look at anime, we look at manga, and we see things that Westerners wouldn't dare put in children's stories or in video games, or they wouldn't stylize it as such, or they wouldn't broach certain topics. So for you to say that what is narrower, that the scope of what's allowed is narrower, is mind-boggling because either you're unaware of how us Westerners view Japan in a positive light because of your artistic integrity and freedom, Or maybe we Westerners are actually just romanticizing the East and don't actually know about a lot of the restrictions and censorship there. Now, I know, like, for example, showing decapitations is illegal. It's out of the, it's against the rules. You can't fucking do it. Anytime a decapitation is shown, it has to be implied rather than outwardly put there. They're like, when it comes to Japanese pornography, they have to blur the genitals because, like showing actual insertion is against Japanese law. So obviously they do have censorship laws, but it's always seemed that when it comes to particularly their artistic freedom, they actually are less censorious in the West. It's a very interesting dichotomy between how they see it versus how we see it. Compared to the freedom allowed in other countries, Japan is narrow. In an age when the internet is so widespread, I have the feeling of, why are you saying this now? To which they were asked if their current thoughts on the topic were the same as they were back then. I would also be curious to find out, did you have these same thoughts in 2011? I'm going to guess you do, because people that value freedom usually have always valued it and will continue to value it. In turn, Mikami asserted, "My thinking has not changed at all since then. Bingo, bango, bongo, give your boy a prize." I think it is a strange situation where there are customers who want to enjoy a game with a unique aspect, and those who do not play games try to prevent people from enjoying the game by restricting their enjoyment of the work through regulations, i.e., putting censorship, bringing down the censorship ban hammer. People who aren't ever going to play these games but think that they've got some moral demand to figure out what is best for the community at large, what is best for the citizens, because they're too dumb and too much of sheep to think for themselves. So they're going to put in these arbitrary censorious rules so that you can be safe, good little 11-year-old boy playing video games, even though studies have shown over and over and over and over and over that video games do not cause any sort of violence or negative sexual tendencies, or insert any other wild claim from Tipper Gore back in 1996 here. That's right, added Suda. If regulations are imposed, we have no choice but to respond to them as part of our job. But I always wonder, what will people who play the games would think? Well, I'll tell you what we think. I will give you a direct response as to what we think. We fucking hate it. There's entire YouTube channels, your boys included, and there's so many others, Mugen Lord, Dash Attack Zero, obviously Hypnotic, Atreus. A lot of folks in this sphere and tangentially related spheres have all made a pretty penny and have all made thousands of view count videos talking about damning censorship in gaming, and how many of us have said, "Oh, look at this remake is being censored. Good thing we still have the original. Not buying this. It has quite literally burned your customers. It has burned our trust in you." Now, not necessarily you specifically, Suda. Not necessarily you specifically, Shinji Mikami. Notice me, senpai. But in general, it has burned us on buying your games, on trusting your companies, and it has made you guys look like weak cowards who do not have the balls to stand up to whatever big bad evil guy is imposing these censorious regulations. Just so you know, you asked what it made us think. That's what it makes us think. For example, he continued, if a lot of people buy the PC version of this game on Steam because they want to play it without restrictions, it would be a bit sad, even though it is available on a variety of platforms. It makes me wonder what the restrictions are for. Who are these restrictions aimed at? I feel, well, they are aimed at everybody, because they want to control everybody. They want to make sure that everybody has the same ideological thought process as one another, because they're easier to control that way. It goes far deeper than just, we want to ruin video games for them youngins. No, this is deep-rooted, control-based propaganda by large, overarching government and powerful entities and corporate entities, because they want control. And I know that sounds crazy, but don't forget, just a couple of days ago, I did a video proving the government is funding left-leaning propaganda in video games, both in America and in Europe. It is blatantly out in the open on the government's own website. So yeah, all that conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, Alex Jones nonsense I just espoused ain't exactly all that cray-cray. To this end, Mikami then raised the example of Dead Space, which at the time of its initial release could not be released in Japan due to regulations. So if you wanted to play in Japan, you had to go get an overseas version somehow. At the time, I had the opportunity to talk with people at the development studio in the US, the original Resident Evil director recalled. What I still remember vividly is that some of them were in tears saying, "We couldn't release the game in Japan after all the hard work we put into it. I can say this about the work I was involved in. I can say this about films I was involved in, but I'm not doing grotesque splatter films just because I want to express cruelty subtlety. I use them only as accents in the direction of the film. And as you should be allowed to, because as the artistic creative director, you should be able to make whatever the fuck you want within the confines of the law, and in my opinion, the U.S. Constitution, because that's the best moral framework for the law. But obviously, yeah, do whatever you want, and then let the market decide. If people don't want to see those gory, splatter-filled films, then they're not gonna buy it. But if by God they got a raging boner for them, then you're gonna sell yourself some tickets. And of course, the Japanese noses are going to bleed, because if there's anything the anime taught me, it's that boners make Japanese men have nosebleeds. This is a difficult issue, Suda further noted, but it'd be great if they could create a 0X rating on top of the 0Z, the Computer Entertainment Rating Organization, otherwise known as Japan's answer to America's ESRB or Europe's PEG system, so the expression of the overseas version could be used in Japan as they are, and then from here they just opine about how that would mean they'd have to make multiple versions of the game. They're not even opposed to doing that if it means that you get to play the unaltered version of the game. All in all, what we see here, what they're saying at the end isn't as important. It's the idea behind what they're saying. And the idea is, while we are seeing Japan go down the route of ESG, we are seeing Japan go down the route of DEI hiring, we are seeing Japan take on these Western-oriented tendencies that we have begged them not to fucking do. There are still creators who think, you know what? This is a bad thing. We should be able to make what we want. We should be able to put out what we want. And we should be able to let the market decide. And if we made a mistake, that's on us. And yeah, I get it. That might not make investors happy. But isn't artistic integrity important? And don't you think just maybe customers will buy something based on said artistic integrity? Because I, speaking as a customer, know I sure as well good goddamn would. It is that simple. And it warms my heart to know that my favorite director of all time in the video game space shares this ideology with me. He doesn't need to share any other ideology. He just needs to share this one. And this one is that censorship is always a net negative, and the artist should be able to make what the artist wants to make, and the government should get their grubby fucking fingers out of it. But those are my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X where you can find me at @BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about censorship in the video game industry, but anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon and become a member for $4.99 a month. You can join the Discord, choose the articles I go over on a day-to-day basis, choose the videos I react to on my Friday night live streams, and of course, get involved with over 80 other vital idols. We are a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further, because we do care about diversity, but only one kind of diversity of thought. If that's interesting to you, join the Discord, hit subscribe. And until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.